Today's video is for my friends who are constantly doing all the things, but also feeling like they're not getting anywhere. I'm going to break down why I think that happens, teach you a few concepts about my favorite topic, which is productivity, and then I will share with you a few practical tips that you can use in your life to not only feel a little bit more productive, but also more intentional about where your productivity is focused towards so that you can live the life you want to live, right? So let's get into it. But before we do, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Karen McGill. I am an ADHD coach and creator, and I am here for the busy, ambitious brains who feel really busy doing all the things, but they're not actually being very productive. Now, in full transparency, I got to tell you, I'm not an expert in productivity. I will admit that on the days where I feel productive or maybe just busy, I feel better at the end of the day. I feel like I've spent my energy and hopefully I've moved towards some kind of outcome, but I feel like I didn't waste the day. So I love that feeling of, let's call it productivity. But I also feel like my own relationship with productivity can not only be a little unbalanced in the sense that I think I derive too much self-worth from being productive. But I also find that very often my productivity is really just me running around in circles, catching my tail, because I don't really know what my productivity is in service of. And I think that that is where a lot of us get hung up. So at this point, I want to talk about two concepts in productivity that I think really kind of define the spectrum. On the one end, we've got toxic productivity, and on the other end, we have feel-good productivity. So let's start with toxic productivity because I think a lot of us can identify with it. So toxic productivity is basically that need to always feel productive, even when it's at the expense of your physical health or your mental health. Is often referred to as workaholism. And based on the definition, it can also be a coping mechanism for trauma, which makes a lot of sense because it's basically the glorification or even the obsession with being busy. And that busyness is not coming from a place of intention or forethought about what you're trying to accomplish. It's more of a nervous system reaction where you feel like if you don't stop working and pushing through this perceived massive load of work, there's going to be some really terrible consequence for it. But if you've encountered this feeling, then you know that there's no end to that feeling of, I have to get all this stuff done, or I can relax when, or I'll be happy when all of this mountain of work is actually done. But in reality, and I know this from personal experience, more often than not, we're doing from this place of sheer panic because we don't actually know what we want. So we kind of thrash around in this ocean of busy panic, assuming that at some point we might hit land and actually get some clarity on where it is we want to go. But that, my friend, is magical thinking, because you and I both know that no amount of running around in circles is going to give you clarity. Being busy never leads to clarity. It's actually the opposite. It's being still that will eventually quiet the mind, and give you the ability to hear yourself think. And here's the other thing that I think is really important to recognize and accept. There is no amount of planners, organization systems, digital apps that will save you from your own toxic productivity or constant need to feel busy. So many of my clients, when they first come to me, think that if they can find the right productivity system, then it will fix all of their problems and they'll be able to get everything done. But that is just delusional because there is no planner out there that's going to organize your life for you until you have the clarity and vision of where you're actually going. So now that we've shed some light on toxic productivity, let's go to the other end of the productivity spectrum. I'm labeling this feel-good productivity based on Ali Abdaal's recent book, which if you haven't read is really good. I will link it below. And the reason I use his book as the opposite of toxic productivity is that it's not doing for the sake of doing. A lot more time and energy is spent on thinking about where you want to go and how you want to be and how you want to experience the actual journey of getting there. And I think that that concept, which is so important, has been almost lost in this whole productivity conversation. If we spent half as much time thinking about what we want for our lives and getting super clear on what that would look like, rather than just being in a constant state of doing, we would have so much more time and energy at our disposal. And not only that, we would be so much happier along the way. Because in our culture, especially here in the US, we glorify achievement, setting goals and achieving them no matter what it costs emotionally or physically or anything like that. That is what we perceive as personal power. And personally, I think that kind of sucks. Like, who wants to look back at their life and say, yes, I achieved all of my goals and it was hard and it sucked and I had to work every day, but I did it. I did it. I achieved my goals. Like, honestly, that is not the life I want to have. This idea of feel good productivity has more to do with being in touch with intentionality, choosing goals that are aligned with who we are, really understanding who we are and what we want, and spending more time in deliberation of that rather than just spinning ourselves in circles. But before we get on to the practical tools we can use to embrace more of this feel good productivity perspective, I want to address those of you who are feeling triggered by this idea of choosing goals that feel good and going after them in a softer way and not having to work so hard every day to achieve what you feel you need to achieve. Because there's some of you who are thinking it must be nice that you can just pick these fluffy goals and go after them. I have a job, I have kids, I have responsibilities. I have to do these hard things every day. And I know that thought process so well because I used to think that way. And I think it's very natural for us to have that inclination because from the time that we're born to the point where we're young adults, our life is entirely dictated by other people. We are told what to do, we are expected to do it, and that is how we got praise as a kid. We are conditioned throughout our entire lives to follow the rules and do what's expected of us. And when we do that, we get praise and rewards. But at some point in our lives, if we don't wake up to the reality that we are now adults and therefore sovereign human beings who get to make their own choices in life, then we will continue this constant busyness of just trying to keep up with all of the demands that life puts on us because we're not choosing our own direction. And if I'm being completely honest with you, it took me way too long to get out of that mindset of I just have to do because that's what it is expected of me. It took me way too long to wake up to the reality that I get to choose my own life because I'm an adult. So I share that because I know some of you are still stuck in that frame of mind where you're busy just trying to keep up with all of the expectations that you feel are put on you and that you don't have the autonomy to make choices. You absolutely do. Not in all cases, but in the majority of cases, if you live in a free country, then you have the autonomy to make choices about where you want to go in your life. So now that we know that a lot of this toxic productivity and obsession with busyness is coming from this place of just trying to keep up with expectations, whether they're perceived or real, but without a clear direction of what we're trying to achieve or where we're trying to go. So obviously the first thing we need to do is take a step back and look at our lives. Where are we being busy without any clear direction and why are we doing it? Is it for ourselves or is it based on someone else's expectation, either real or perceived? And once you get really clear on that, whether it takes you 2 hours or 2 years, you can start saying no to all of the busy that's just there for the sake of being busy. It can be really scary to take that pause and really look at your life and ask yourself, what am I doing for myself versus everybody else? But when you do, that is a huge turning point and opportunity for you to start making decisions that are in alignment with what you want. And if that sounds in any way selfish to you, like, well, I can't just do the things I want, I have to do things for the people around me. Listen to me. When you get clear on who you are and what it is you want to go after in your life, not only do you have more time, patience, clarity, and focus to do that thing, it will also make you a happier human being. It will make you more present for the people in your life. If you're a parent, it will model what you want for your kids when they become adults. It will model that sense of sovereignty that you can make choices based on who you are and take 100% responsibility for the outcome. So once you have that clarity, which again is a very big process, but a very important one, it's at that point when you can start to bring in the planners and the organizational systems and start to build a rhythm of intentional planning in your life so you're constantly moving towards what it is you want. And your planning process should always have a review process so that you're constantly checking back to make sure that you're not falling into those behaviors of just blindly being busy trying to do all the things for all the people. That is an ingrained mindset and habit that is going to take a lot of conscious effort to get out of that frame of mind and to constantly be checking in with yourself to make sure that what you're doing is aligned with what you want out of your life. So, coming full circle to this idea of toxic productivity versus feel good productivity, I hope I shed some light on why we do the things we do, why we constantly feel like we're overwhelmed and feeling busy but not really getting anywhere, and what we need to do instead. However, you get to that point of clarity, that journey of going inward and getting clear on what it is you want can take a long time. And if you struggle with ADHD, as I do, thinking about these heady concepts without a framework or a structure can be really hard. And that is why I developed a Distraction Action, which is my productivity program. It not only helps you figure out the who am I and what do I want, but it will help you prioritize what you want, break it down into steps, and build it into a planning system. So it's there for you if you need the extra support. Either way, I hope this has been helpful for you. And on that note, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.